It was a cold winter evening when the sleek black car pulled up outside one of the most luxurious hotels in the city. The hotel stood tall, its glass facade reflecting the golden glow of streetlights. It was known for catering to the wealthiest and most influential people in the world, business tycoons, celebrities, royalty. But tonight it wasn't any of those familiar faces stepping out of the car. Instead, it was a woman who looked strikingly different from the usual crowd. She wore a tailored suit that spoke volumes about her confidence and success. Her heels clicked sharply against the pavement as she walked toward the entrance. Around her neck hung a modest necklace, an heirloom passed down through generations, but it wasn't jewelry or designer clothes that caught attention. It was the quiet assurance in her stride, the way she carried herself like someone who had earned every ounce of respect she commanded. Yet, despite her polished appearance, there was something about her that seemed out of place here. The doorman opened the door for her, but his smile faltered slightly. He exchanged glances with the concierge inside, their eyes narrowing almost imperceptibly. They didn't recognize her face, and that alone set off alarm bells in their minds. In a place where everyone knew everyone, anonymity was suspicious. As she approached the front desk, whispers began to ripple through the lobby. "Who is she?" one staff member murmured under her breath. "No idea," another replied. "But she doesn't look like our usual guests." When she reached the reception area, the young man behind the counter forced a polite smile. "Good evening, ma'am. How may I assist you?" he asked, his tone overly formal, dripping with subtle disdain. "I'd like a suite for the night," she said calmly, placing her credit card on the counter. Her voice was soft but firm, leaving no room for argument. The receptionist picked up the card, turning it over in his hand as if inspecting it for flaws. Then, without warning, he raised his eyebrows and leaned back slightly. "Are you sure this is valid?" he asked, loud enough for nearby guests to overhear. A few heads turned, curiosity piqued by the unexpected drama unfolding at the front desk. The billionaire's expression didn't change. She simply stared at him, her dark eyes locking onto his. There was no anger, no embarrassment, just an unshakable calmness that unnerved him more than any outburst could have. For a moment, the entire lobby fell silent, waiting to see what would happen next. "Well?" she asked, her voice cutting through the tension like a knife. "Is there a problem?" The receptionist hesitated, suddenly aware that he might have crossed a line. Still, pride got the better of him. No problem," he stammered, forcing a grin. "Let me just check availability." He tapped furiously on his keyboard, pretending to search for a room. Meanwhile, other staff members pretended not to notice, though some couldn't help but smirk. Finally, after what felt like an eternity, he handed her a key card. "Your suite is ready, ma'am," he said, his tone now laced with fake cheerfulness. "Enjoy your stay." Without another word, she took the card and walked away, her posture unwavering. If anyone had been watching closely, they might have noticed the flicker of determination in her eyes, a spark that hinted at something far greater than mere irritation. To the staff, however, she was already forgotten. Just another guest, albeit an odd one, who would leave tomorrow and never return. Little did they know, this encounter would mark the beginning of a chain of events that would change their lives forever. Over the course of her stay, small incidents continued to pile up. At breakfast, the waiter accidentally spilled coffee on her sleeve while serving another table, muttering a half-hearted apology before moving on. In the spa, the attendant suggested she try a cheaper package, implying she might not be able to afford the premium options. Even the valet driver treated her car with less care than he did for the Ferraris and Lamborghinis parked nearby. Each slight was minor on its own, but together, they painted a picture of disdain and prejudice. And yet, the billionaire never complained. She didn't raise her voice or demand refunds. Instead, she observed everything, the smirks, the whispered comments, the dismissive gestures, with a patience that bordered on eerie. Every insult, every act of rudeness was stored away in her memory, cataloged for future use. By the time she checked out 2 days later, the staff barely remembered her name. To them, she was just another face in the crowd, someone who didn't belong in their glittering world. What they failed to realize was that the world itself was changing, and soon, they would find themselves bowing to the very person they had mocked. As her car disappeared into the distance, none of them could have guessed that this mysterious guest was worth billions, or that she had built her empire from scratch, starting with nothing more than a dream and relentless determination. Most importantly, none of them realized that she had already decided what to do next. For the billionaire, revenge wasn't about petty retaliation. It was about teaching a lesson, one that would resonate far beyond the confines of this hotel. And as she drove away, her mind was already racing with plans. Plans that would turn their world upside down. Weeks passed and life at the hotel returned to its usual rhythm. The staff went about their days as if nothing unusual had happened. Guests came and went, leaving behind tips and glowing reviews. The memory of the mysterious woman faded into the background, becoming little more than a fleeting anecdote shared during slow shifts. She was strange, one of the receptionists remarked casually while organizing files. Yeah, but harmless, another replied with a shrug. Probably just some small-time business owner trying to act rich. No one gave her much thought anymore. After all, she hadn't caused any trouble during her stay. No complaints, no demands, nothing out of the ordinary. In fact, her quiet demeanor had made her easy to forget. And so, the staff carried on, confident that they would never see her again. But then something unexpected happened. One morning an email arrived in the manager's inbox. It was brief but direct. Please gather your team for an urgent meeting at 10 a.m. sharp. The sender's name was unfamiliar, but the subject line, ownership transfer announcement, sent a jolt of panic through the office. Ownership transfer? What did that mean? Was the hotel being sold? Rumors began swirling almost immediately. Some speculated that the property had been bought by a foreign investor. Others whispered about bankruptcy or restructuring. By the time the clock struck 10, the entire staff was gathered in the conference room, anxiety etched on every face. The doors opened, and in walked a figure no one expected to see, the same woman who had stayed at the hotel weeks earlier. This time, however, she wasn't dressed casually. She wore a tailored navy blue blazer, her posture radiating authority. Her presence silenced the murmurs instantly, leaving only stunned silence. "Good morning," she began, her voice calm yet commanding. "I'm sure you're wondering why I've called you here today. Allow me to explain." She turned to the screen behind her, where a slideshow displayed financial charts and legal documents. As of yesterday, this hotel is under new ownership. My company has acquired it, and I will be overseeing operations moving forward. Gasps erupted around the room. Eyes widened in disbelief. How could this have happened? Why hadn't anyone seen it coming? For those of you who don't remember me, she continued, glancing pointedly at the receptionist who had mocked her credit card, I stayed here not too long ago. During my visit, I observed several areas where improvements could be made, not just in service but in attitude. Her gaze swept across the room, making eye contact with each person. Let me be clear. I'm not here to punish anyone. I'm here to transform this establishment into something extraordinary. That starts with accountability, but it doesn't end there. The staff exchanged nervous glances. Accountability? What did that mean for them? Would they lose their jobs? Be demoted? The uncertainty hung heavy in the air. I'll outline my plan shortly, she said, cutting off the rising tide of whispers. But first, let me address the elephant in the room. Yes, I remember how I was treated during my stay, and yes, it influenced my decision to acquire this hotel. But this isn't about revenge. It's about teaching a lesson in respect, professionalism, and integrity. Her words struck a chord, though not everyone was convinced. Some bristled at the implication that they needed to change. Others felt defensive, insisting they were simply doing their jobs. Still, no one dared interrupt her as she laid out her vision for the future. This hotel will undergo significant renovations, she explained, pulling up renderings of redesigned interiors. We'll modernize the facilities, improve guest experiences, and implement cutting-edge technology. But none of that matters unless we address the root issue, our culture. She paused, letting her words sink in. From now on, every employee will attend mandatory training sessions focused on empathy, inclusivity, and customer service excellence. We will hold ourselves to the highest standards, not because we're afraid of punishment, but because it's the right thing to do. To drive her point home, she announced a series of initiatives designed to foster growth within the organization. Employees would have opportunities to learn new skills, take on leadership roles, and contribute ideas. Promotions would be based on merit, not seniority. Feedback from guests would be taken seriously, with regular surveys ensuring transparency. Then came the bombshell. Some of you may wonder what happens next. For example, whether certain individuals will face consequences for past behavior. Let me assure you, no one will lose their job because of what happened before. However, some of you will be given responsibilities far greater than you currently hold. She gestured toward the receptionist who had doubted her credit card. You, for instance, will lead our new customer service initiative. Your task will be to ensure that every guest feels valued and respected, from the moment they walk through the door until the moment they leave. The man's jaw dropped. He stammered, "Me? But you'll succeed," she interrupted firmly. "Because failure isn't an option. If you can't rise to the occasion, you'll step aside for someone who can." Her message was clear. This wasn't a threat. It was a challenge. By placing former offenders in positions of power, she forced them to confront their biases head-on. Each promotion came with strict expectations: lead by example, inspire others, and uphold the values she championed. When the meeting ended, the staff filed out in stunned silence. Conversations buzzed in hushed tones as they processed what had just happened. Some felt humiliated, knowing they'd been singled out for past mistakes. Others were intrigued, curious to see how these changes would unfold. A few even felt hopeful, sensing an opportunity to grow and prove themselves. Over the following days, the billionaire wasted no time putting her plans into action. Construction crews arrived to begin renovations, transforming outdated spaces into sleek, modern environments. Training workshops commenced, focusing not just on technical skills but on emotional intelligence. Managers met regularly to discuss progress, holding each other accountable for results. Meanwhile, the promoted employees struggled to adapt. Leading teams required patience and humility, qualities many had never cultivated. Mistakes were made, tempers flared, and tensions ran high. Yet slowly but surely, cracks began to form in the old ways of thinking. Forced to work together, the staff started seeing each other in a new light. Walls built on arrogance and prejudice crumbled, replaced by mutual respect and collaboration. One evening, after a particularly grueling day, the former receptionist found himself sitting alone in the break room. He stared at his reflection in the window, replaying the billionaire's words in his mind. Failure isn't an option. At first, he'd resented her for humiliating him. Now, though, he realized she had done something far more profound. She had trusted him to change. For the first time since the takeover, he smiled, not out of relief but out of gratitude. Gratitude for a second chance, for an opportunity to rewrite his story. And deep down, he knew he wasn't the only one feeling this way. Change was hard, yes, but it was also possible. Months passed and the hotel began to transform, not just physically but in spirit. The once stuffy atmosphere gave way to a vibrant energy that seemed to pulse through every corner of the building. The renovations were nearly complete, with sleek furniture, state-of-the-art technology, and warm lighting creating an inviting ambiance. But the real change was happening among the staff. The billionaire had made good on her promise to elevate those who had treated her poorly. The former receptionist now led the customer service initiative, overseeing everything from greeting guests at the front desk to handling complaints. At first, he struggled. Years of condescension and judgmental behavior didn't vanish overnight. His team often clashed with him, accusing him of hypocrisy for expecting them to act differently when he himself had been part of the problem. But instead of defending himself or backing down, he listened. He attended every training session, took notes and asked questions, even when it meant swallowing his pride. Slowly, his attitude began to shift. He started greeting guests with genuine smiles, remembering their names and going out of his way to ensure their stays were perfect. When mistakes happened, and they did, he owned up to them immediately, apologizing sincerely and offering solutions. Over time, his team began to respect him, not because he demanded it, but because he earned it. Similar transformations were taking place elsewhere in the hotel. The spa attendant who had suggested cheaper packages was now managing the wellness center. She introduced personalized treatments based on guest preferences, earning rave reviews. The valet driver who had mishandled cars became head of parking operations, implementing systems to track and care for vehicles meticulously. Even the waiter who had spilled coffee on the billionaire's sleeve found himself promoted to assistant manager of the restaurant. Under his leadership, wait times decreased, food quality improved, and complaints dwindled to almost nothing. Yet progress wasn't without its challenges. There were days when old habits reared their heads, threatening to undo all the hard work. One particularly tense moment occurred during a busy weekend when a group of high-profile guests checked in simultaneously. The lobby buzzed with activity as luggage carts rolled back and forth and bellhops scrambled to keep up. Amid the chaos, a new trainee accidentally knocked over a vase, shattering it into pieces. Panic rippled through the staff. Accidents like this used to result in harsh scolding, or worse, public humiliation. But things were different now. Instead of yelling, the manager calmly approached the trainee. "It's okay," she said softly. "Let's clean it up together and make sure it doesn't happen again." Her tone was firm yet kind, reminding everyone present of the lessons they'd learned about accountability and support. Word of these changes spread quickly, not just within the hotel but beyond its walls. Guests noticed the difference too. Where, once they had encountered indifference or rudeness, they now found warmth and attentiveness. Social media posts praised the staff's friendliness, the hotel's cleanliness, and the overall experience. Online review sites lit up with glowing testimonials. Best stay ever. The staff went above and beyond. I felt truly valued as a guest. Even competitors took notice. Other hotels in the area began sending representatives to observe what made this property stand out. Some tried to replicate the billionaire's strategies, but none could match the authenticity of her approach. After all, her methods weren't just about improving processes, they were about changing hearts and minds. Despite the growing success, the billionaire herself remained largely behind the scenes. She visited occasionally, walking through the halls unnoticed by most guests. To the staff, however, her presence was always felt. Whether it was a quick word of encouragement or a gentle reminder to stay focused, she continued guiding them toward excellence. Her leadership style was unique, firm yet compassionate, demanding yet supportive. It inspired loyalty and dedication, qualities that radiated outward to every aspect of the hotel. One evening, as the sun dipped below the horizon, casting a golden glow over the city, the billionaire stood on the rooftop terrace overlooking the bustling streets below. Beside her was the former receptionist, now one of her most trusted employees. They sipped coffee quietly, enjoying the peaceful moment. "You've come a long way," she said, finally breaking the silence. He nodded, his expression thoughtful. "Thank you for believing in me, even when I didn't believe in myself." She smiled faintly. "Belief is only half the battle. The rest is action. You chose to rise to the challenge, and that's why you're succeeding." Her words resonated deeply. For so long he had defined himself by his past mistakes, convinced he couldn't change. Now he saw himself differently, not as someone flawed beyond repair, but as someone capable of growth and redemption. As they parted ways, the billionaire reflected on how far the hotel and its people had come. What started as an act of defiance against prejudice had blossomed into something greater, a community united by shared values and purpose. Yet she knew the journey wasn't over. True transformation required constant effort, a commitment to never settling for mediocrity. The next morning, she called another meeting. This time, the mood was lighter, filled with optimism rather than apprehension. Standing before the assembled staff, she announced her latest initiative, a mentorship program designed to help employees develop skills beyond hospitality. From financial literacy workshops to leadership seminars, the goal was to empower them both professionally and personally. "This hotel isn't just a workplace," she declared, her voice ringing with conviction. "It's a stepping stone, a place where dreams can take flight. My hope is that each of you will leave here not just better workers but better versions of yourselves." Applause erupted, heartfelt and enthusiastic. For the first time, the IA staff truly understood her vision, not just for the hotel but for them. They weren't merely cogs in a machine. They were individuals with potential waiting to be unlocked. In the weeks that followed, the hotel reached new heights. Revenue soared, occupancy rates hit record levels, and accolades poured in from industry leaders. But the greatest achievement wasn't measured in numbers. It was seen in the smiles of the staff, the laughter of the guests, and the sense of belonging that permeated every interaction. And yet the billionaire knew there was still more work to be done. Change, after all, was a continuous process. As she prepared to step back from day-to-day operations and focus on expanding her empire, she left the staff with one final piece of advice: never stop learning, never stop growing, and never forget that respect is the foundation of everything we do. With that, she walked away, leaving behind a legacy of resilience, grace, and unwavering belief in the power of transformation. A year had passed since the billionaire took over the hotel, and the transformation was nothing short of extraordinary. The once stuffy establishment now buzzed with life, its reputation reaching far beyond the city limits. Guests traveled from across the globe to experience the unparalleled hospitality that had become synonymous with the property. What set it apart wasn't just the luxurious amenities or stunning architecture, it was the people. The staff, once dismissive and judgmental, had blossomed into a team united by purpose and passion. For the billionaire, this marked the culmination of her vision. She had turned a symbol of arrogance and prejudice into a beacon of inclusivity and excellence. Yet, as she prepared to step back from daily operations, she couldn't help but wonder, would the changes endure without her constant presence? Or would old habits creep back in once she was gone? Her concerns weren't unfounded. Change, after all, was fragile. It required nurturing, reinforcement, and above all, commitment. To ensure the hotel remained true to its new identity, she introduced one final initiative before stepping aside, a program called the Legacy Project. The idea was simple yet profound. Every employee, regardless of their role, would be encouraged to share stories of personal growth and professional development. These stories would be compiled into a book, distributed to every staff member, as a reminder of how far they'd come and how much further they could go. More importantly, the project aimed to instill a sense of ownership among the employees. This wasn't just the billionaire's legacy, it was theirs too. When she announced the project during a staff meeting, the room erupted in excitement. Some cheered, others clapped, and a few wiped away tears. For many, the idea of sharing their journey felt daunting but deeply meaningful. Over the next few weeks, stories poured in, from handwritten notes to recorded interviews, each one offering a glimpse into the lives touched by the billionaire's leadership. One of the most powerful stories came from the former receptionist. In his account, he recounted the shame he had felt after realizing how poorly he had treated the billionaire during her initial visit. "I didn't think I deserved a second chance," he wrote, "but she gave me more than that. She gave me trust. And because of her belief in me, I learned to believe in myself." Another story came from the spa attendant who described how her promotion had reignited her love for helping others. "Before, I saw my job as just work," she admitted. "Now I see it as an opportunity to make someone's day brighter. That's something I'll carry with me forever." Even the valet driver shared his perspective, reflecting on how managing parking operations had taught him discipline and attention to detail. "I used to think success was out of reach for someone like me," he said. "But now I know that growth starts with small steps, and those steps can lead anywhere." As the stories accumulated, the billionaire read each one carefully, her heart swelling with pride. These weren't just tales of individual triumphs. They were proof that change was possible, that even the hardest hearts could soften, and even the deepest wounds could heal. With the book nearly complete, the billionaire decided it was time for her to take a step back. Her empire demanded her attention, and while she cherished the progress at the hotel, she knew it was time to let the staff lead themselves. Before leaving, however, she planned one last visit, not as their boss, but as a guest. On a crisp autumn morning, her car pulled up to the hotel entrance once again. This time, there was no hesitation, no condescension. Instead, smiles greeted her warmly as familiar faces rushed to assist her. The doorman opened her door with genuine enthusiasm, and the concierge welcomed her with a heartfelt, "We've been expecting you." Inside, the lobby was alive with activity. Guests mingled comfortably, staff moved with purpose, and the air hummed with positivity. As she approached the front desk, the former receptionist stood ready to greet her. His demeanor had changed completely. He exuded confidence and respect, qualities that shone through in every interaction. "Welcome back," he said, his voice steady and sincere. "It's an honor to have you here." She smiled, nodding appreciatively. "Thank you. I hope you'll enjoy showing me around." Over the course of her stay, the billionaire experienced firsthand the fruits of her labor. Every request was met promptly, every interaction laced with kindness and professionalism. When she dined at the restaurant, the waiter, the same man who had spilled coffee on her sleeve months earlier, delivered her meal with a smile, remembering her preferences perfectly. During her massage at the wellness center, the spa attendant tailored the treatment specifically to her needs, ensuring she left feeling rejuvenated. Each moment reinforced what she already knew. The hotel wasn't just surviving, it was thriving. But what truly struck her was the authenticity of the staff's efforts. They weren't performing out of fear or obligation. They genuinely cared about making her stay unforgettable. On her final evening, the billionaire attended a farewell dinner, hosted in her honor. The entire staff gathered in the ballroom, dressed in their finest attire. Candles flickered softly, casting a warm glow over the room as laughter and conversation filled the air. When it was time for speeches, the former receptionist stepped forward, holding a copy of The Legacy Project in his hands. "None of us will ever forget the day you walked into our lives," he began, his voice trembling slightly. "You didn't just buy a hotel, you gave us a second chance. You taught us that respect isn't earned through titles or wealth, but through actions. And you showed us that growth is possible no matter where we start." He paused, glancing down at the book. "This project isn't just about remembering what we've accomplished. It's about reminding ourselves of the values you instilled in us. Values we'll carry forward not just here, but in everything we do." Tears welled up in his eyes as he handed her the book. "Thank you for believing in us, for challenging us, and for showing us what true leadership looks like." The fuck room erupted in applause, echoing off the walls as the billionaire accepted the gift. Her own eyes glistened with emotion as she looked around the room, taking in the faces of the people she had helped transform. These weren't just employees. They were family. When the applause subsided, she rose to speak. "When I first came, here I didn't know what to expect," she admitted, her voice soft but steady. "I thought I was coming to teach a lesson, but in truth, you taught me something far more valuable, the power of resilience. Each of you has shown me that change is possible if we're willing to embrace it." She paused, letting her words sink in. "This hotel isn't mine anymore. It belongs to you, to everyone who has poured their heart and soul into making it what it is today. My hope is that you'll continue to grow, to innovate, and to inspire others. Because if there's one thing I've learned, it's that greatness isn't achieved alone. It's built together." Her speech ended with a standing ovation, the staff cheering long after she sat down. For them, this wasn't just a celebration of her departure. It was a testament to their journey, a journey that had started with prejudice and mockery, but ended with unity and triumph. As the night drew to a close, the billionaire retired to her suite, reflecting on everything that had transpired. She thought about the challenges, the resistance, and the victories. Most of all, she thought about the people, their laughter, their determination, their resilience. They were living, proof that transformation wasn't just possible, it was inevitable, as long as someone dared to believe in it. The next morning, she checked out quietly, leaving behind glowing reviews for the entire team. What started as a tale of mockery and disdain had become a story of redemption and renewal. And though she wouldn't return anytime soon, she knew the hotel and its people would continue to thrive, because she had planted seeds of change, and those seeds had taken root. Years had passed since the billionaire stepped away from the hotel. Her name was still spoken with reverence among the staff, and her influence lingered in every corner of the property. The once stuffy establishment she had transformed was now known as one of the finest hotels in the world, not just for its luxury but for its heart. Guests raved about the warmth of the service, the attention to detail, and the genuine care they received during their stays. But beyond the accolades and glowing reviews lay a deeper legacy, a culture of respect, inclusivity, and continuous growth. The employees who had once mocked her were now leaders in their own right, carrying forward the values she had instilled in them. They weren't just running a hotel, they were building a community, a place where everyone, regardless of background or appearance, felt valued. For the former receptionist, life had changed in ways he never imagined. Promoted to general manager after the billionaire's departure, he became the face of the hotel, embodying its mission in everything he did. His leadership style mirrored hers, firm yet compassionate, demanding yet supportive. Under his guidance, the hotel continued to innovate, introducing cutting-edge technology and eco-friendly practices that set new standards in the hospitality industry. The spa attendant, now head of wellness operations, expanded the center's offerings to include mindfulness workshops and mental health resources for both guests and staff. Her initiatives earned widespread praise, positioning the hotel as a pioneer in holistic hospitality. Meanwhile, the valet driver turned parking manager implemented systems that reduced wait times and improved efficiency, earning him recognition within the company. Even the waiter who had spilled coffee on the billionaire's sleeve found success far beyond what he had dreamed. After excelling as assistant restaurant manager, he opened his own cafe downtown, inspired by the lessons he had learned about perseverance and excellence. On opening day, many of his former colleagues attended, celebrating not just his achievement but the ripple effect of the billionaire's vision. Despite her absence, the billionaire remained a constant presence in their lives. Copies of the Two Legacy Project were displayed prominently throughout the hotel, serving as a reminder of their journey and the values that defined them. New employees were given the book during orientation, ensuring that the story of transformation would continue to inspire future generations. Yet while the hotel thrived, the billionaire herself moved on to bigger challenges. Her empire grew exponentially, branching into industries ranging from renewable energy to education. She became a global icon, celebrated not only for her wealth but for her commitment to uplifting others. Interviews often asked about her most memorable projects, and without fail she mentioned the hotel. It wasn't just about turning a profit, she explained during one such interview. It was about proving that change is possible, that even the hardest hearts can soften and even the deepest wounds can heal. That hotel taught me as much as I taught it. Her words resonated deeply, sparking conversations about leadership, empathy, and the power of second chances. People began referring to her as the billionaire who believed in people, a title she wore with quiet pride. One day, several years after her departure, the billionaire decided to return to the hotel, not for business but for nostalgia. She hadn't announced her visit, wanting to experience it as any other guest would. When her car pulled up to the entrance, she smiled at the sight of the familiar facade. It looked much the same, though subtle updates reflected its evolution over time. As she stepped out, the doorman greeted her warmly, though he didn't recognize her. Inside, the lobby buzzed with activity, filled with guests chatting and staff assisting them seamlessly. At the front desk, a young receptionist welcomed her with a bright smile. "Good afternoon," the receptionist said cheerfully. "How may I assist you?" "I'd like a suite for the night," the billionaire replied, handing over her credit card. This time, there was no hesitation, no judgmental glance. The transaction was smooth, efficient, and respectful. When she reached her room, she took a moment to take it all in. The decor was modern yet inviting, blending comfort with sophistication. A handwritten note rested on the bedside table. "Welcome back. We hope your stay is as unforgettable as your legacy." Tears welled up in her eyes as she read the message. She hadn't expected this level of thoughtfulness, especially from someone who likely hadn't been part of the original team. Yet it was proof that her impact extended beyond those she had directly mentored. It had become ingrained in the very fabric of the hotel. Over the course of her stay, the billionaire experienced nothing short of exceptional service. Every interaction was infused with kindness and professionalism, leaving her deeply moved. During dinner, the waiter recognized her, not from memory, but from a photograph in The Legacy Project. He approached her table cautiously, unsure if he should interrupt. "Excuse me, ma'am," he began hesitantly. Are you the owner who transformed this place?" She nodded, smiling warmly. "I was, yes. But it belongs to all of you now." The waiter's eyes widened in awe. "We owe so much to you," he said earnestly. "You gave us a chance when no one else would. You showed us what we could become." Before she could respond, he added, "If you don't mind, may I introduce you to some of the staff? Many of them have heard your story, but meeting you in person would mean the world." She agreed, touched by his enthusiasm. Over the next hour, she met employees from every department: housekeeping, maintenance, catering, all eager to express their gratitude. Some shared how her leadership had inspired them to pursue dreams they once thought impossible. Others spoke of the friendships and bonds forged through shared struggles and triumphs. By the end of the evening, the billionaire felt overwhelmed, not by exhaustion, but by joy. Seeing the hotel flourish, witnessing the growth of the people she had once doubted, filled her with an indescribable sense of fulfillment. This wasn't just a business success, it was a human success. On her final morning, she checked out quietly, leaving behind glowing reviews for the entire team. As her car drove away, she glanced back at the hotel one last time. It stood tall and proud, a testament to the power of belief and transformation. Though she wouldn't return anytime soon, she knew it would continue to thrive, not because of her, but because of the people she had empowered. Back in her office days later, the billionaire reflected on her journey. What started as an act of defiance against prejudice had become a lesson in resilience, empathy, and the boundless potential of humanity. She realized that true power wasn't about domination or control. It was about inspiring others to rise above their limitations. And so, the story came full circle. From mockery to mentorship, from arrogance to humility, the billionaire and the hotel had transformed each other in ways neither could have anticipated. Theirs was a tale of redemption and renewal, proving that greatness isn't achieved alone, it's built together.